Hi, I'm Chris.
And I'm Jamie.
So there's around 30,000 different agencies in the UK alone. You'll end up spending a lot of your time and potentially money with your chosen agency. This video today we're going to cover a few of the key areas and topics that we suggest when vetting your potential digital agency. Before you can start to narrow down a shortlist then, you're going to need to draw a list of potential agencies to work with. Now, how do you decide initially who to approach?
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, we could probably do a whole video just on that topic alone. I'll just touch on a couple of things. So, first and foremost, you want to draw up a list of non-negotiables. So, the things that you really can't compromise on. For example, it might be location. You might value face-to-face a lot. You don't want to sit on those pesky Zoom calls. It might be all the services that they offer. You may insist, actually, I prefer it all to be done under one roof. Another one, it could be the size of agency. You may really want to work with a small agency, 2 to 5 people, maybe even a freelancer. Or maybe actually decide for the size of business that you are, you really need a big, established 30-plus agency. What I'd also do is draw up a really short list of high-quality agencies based off referrals, if possible, within your network. So this might be agencies that your peers have worked with previously, and then basically just get their take on them, find out what's worked for them, what hasn't, and ideally ones within your industry as well.
Nice and easy. What's one simple tip for everyone to follow?
Honestly, the easiest thing I'd say is double check if they actually practice what they preach. For example, if they're a web design agency and their moniker is, we build beautiful looking websites that convert, have a look at their website. Is it actually any good? If we're an SEO agency that can get you to the top of Google, have a look at their rankings. How are they doing? Honestly, just doing that alone, you can discount 80% of the agencies at least out there. What would you say, Chris?
I'd say to be quite data-driven, be quite analytical, create a spreadsheet, create a framework of questions and score each agency based on certain questions. So it's more than just a gut feeling. Score them on 5 or 6 different criteria, add them up at the end. If you've got a couple of agencies that are close, then maybe which one your gut says, I'd like to work with this agency, which one do you get along with better? Right, now we're in a service-based industry and a key component is certainly the people that you're going to be working with. What sort of questions should you be asking them about their team?
Yeah, I mean, look, like you say, people are absolutely huge. Probably 80-90%, obviously. So it comes down to equipment and software, etc. But if you've not got great people, the chances of you having great output are very minimal. One of the big things I'd be asking if I was a brand is, who would actually be working on this account or project? What's their expertise level? What's their background? Have they worked in similar industries to mine? We've had it time and time again from brands which is, XYZ agency came in, they sold us the dream. It might have been one of their sales guys or some of their senior heads. And then actually day 1 or maybe sort of day 100 is actually, a recent grad or an exec or an apprentice who's actually working on the account. And look, if you're paying for that, that's fine. But if you've been sold the dream, another kind of, it's not ideal, is it really?
Absolutely.
Anything you'd add?
Yeah, I'd certainly try and find out the staff tenure. You get used to working with certain members of the team only for them to move on. Situations like that can be incredibly frustrating. So if you've got people that have been there a while, they generally understand the processes, they're likely to be a good performer. Generally, it should give you more positivity that the project's going to go well. However, if the staff turnover is high, it could suggest a few underlying issues with the agency.
Yeah, that's another thing I'd actually just think about it is I'd be asking how much of their staff is actually outsourced. It's not to say you have to discount every agency that does that. We occasionally use contractors for some of our projects, but it'll give you a bit of an idea if they're actually going to be able to fulfill the brief internally.
Yeah. Now, in our first video, we talked about how to create the perfect website brief, particularly about putting in clear goals. How can you assess whether the agency is going to hold themselves accountable?
What I'd say is hopefully, you've shortlisted some good agencies, have sent you proposals across. What the proposal should contain, especially if it's digital marketing, for example, is a set of KPIs, a set of measures that they'll actually hold themselves accountable to. So say it's digital marketing, for example, PPC, SEO, there's any numbers of different metrics they may mention in there. Website projects, it could be stuff like timescales, deliverables, certain features, for example. Lastly, I'd say, regardless of sort of the service that they're in, every agency should have really good SLAs. So basic stuff, how fast can we expect to respond to something major happens, things like that.
Is there generally a typical amount of time that the whole sales process should take?
Wouldn't say so. Look, we're part of some processes which can take 6 to 9 months. Big, long tenders, which can be quite frustrating. Then some clients may sign off in a week. So it really just varies, to be honest.
I'd certainly second that. Definitely take your time. Don't rush these sort of decisions. You're going to be spending a lot of money on a large project. You've got to make sure that you're confident in your chosen agency.
Yeah, for sure. And to be honest, if you do take that bit of extra time and you actually genuinely feel like the agencies challenge you, they've asked tough questions, they've not just taken your brief as gospel, it's normally a good sign.
Okay. Now, many agencies might have impressive looking logos on the portfolio, the pitch deck, the website. How important is this?
I'd say it varies. Look, pros and cons. It can be quite impressive. You know, how many agencies we've seen that have got Nike or Adidas or the NHS on their websites. But then you actually ask them, okay, what specifically did you do for them? And more times than not, you find out, oh, we did a brochure for them 15 years ago. So I'd actually be asking the question of, okay, what did you do? How recent was it? And how relevant is it? Don't always get brought into, you know, thinking that the logos are kind of the be all and end all. I'd maybe, if I was a brand, be a little bit more inclined to go for the agency that maybe has that kind of middle tier of client, but they're a lot more relevant, like in your kind of industry as well.
Would you say there's any red flags to look out for?
Oh, I mean, look, like you said before, there's 30,000 agencies in the UK. A lot of them are not very good. So there's plenty of things you can look out for. I'd say one, transparency. If you feel like they're not being forthcoming with timescales or costs, that's red flag number one. If they won't introduce you into the team, if they're saying, oh, you know, we've got this big team, but then they can't actually showcase them on a call, normally a bit of a worry. And look, you know, communication as well. I always say to clients and, you know, potential clients that we speak with, if the communication is not very good initially when they're trying to sell you the dream, what's the chances the communication is going to be any good when the project actually starts?
Absolutely. So conversely then, what about the more positive signs you should look out for? Some might be obvious, some not so obvious.
Yeah, I guess like the flip side of everything I've just said. So transparency, if they're more than happy to explain their thought process behind their costs, if they're more than happy to introduce you into the team, yeah, that can be really useful. Communication, if they've been fast, responsive and understanding to everything that you've kind of brought towards them. I think one sort of area we do fall into a bit of a trap with in the creative sector is doing a lot of work for free. So it might be as part of a pitch process, people expect you to do designs. We try and stay away from that. Sometimes it can be a bit of time, bit of a reason to do it. What I would say is if they can provide a little bit of value, even if it's just like a mini audit, for example, they've showed that they're happy to go a little bit above and beyond. Normally a good sign. It shows they've got the enthusiasm to potentially work with you.
Okay. So it's 2025 and the environment is definitely a hot topic. One of the areas we see coming up an awful lot more these days is ESG. Is this something you should discuss?
Yeah, I think for certain businesses it matters, you know, a lot more. So, for example, we work with a number of different charities in around the Northwest. For them, ESG is hugely important, and especially if they get government funding. This is something that comes up sort of time and time again. It can be quite wide-ranging. It could be everything through from your staff, how you look after your staff, if you donate some of your revenue, even stuff like technologies, if you use eco-friendly hosting platforms, for example. So definitely something worth discussing. What I'd say as well is it probably gives you a bit of an indication about the agency's ethics as well. B Corp, that's something which a lot of agencies have started to have now. Something to look out for, really good qualification.
Great. So assuming an agency has ticked all of the boxes, all of the areas covered so far, how much do you need to actually get on with the agency, to get on with the people that you might be working with on a day-to-day basis for the next 6 to 12 months?
I'd say it certainly helps. Look, I mean, the rule of thumb I kind of generally use is, could I see myself spending 20% of my working week sat next to this person? And if the answer is a resounding no, you know you're probably not going to get on with them. That being said, you know, the opposite can be true, where sometimes you need someone who's going to challenge you and push you. But ultimately, look, it's a business relationship, it's a partnership. You're not likely to be taking this person home to meet your parents. So ultimately, the outcome's more important than the process at times. It can be a mixture of both.
Do most agencies provide references?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I suppose it's a little bit like a CV, references available upon request. But, we try and do that where possible. What we'll do is provide references with sort of relevant clients within their field. One thing I would notice, and look, this kind of goes without saying, right, which is an agency is only likely to provide references for projects that have gone particularly well or they've got a really good relationship with. So always take it with a little bit of a pinch of salt. So what I would say actually is go on the website, have a look. If there's any case studies that you're particularly interested in speaking with, reach out to them as well.
Solid advice there. Lastly, you've narrowed down your shortlist from originally 4 or 5 to possibly 2. Do you have any killer questions that most agencies might not expect to hear?
There's one question which I think I've probably only been asked maybe 5 times in my 2.5 years at Pixel Kicks. And every time it kind of, not stumps me, but I always get put on the back foot like, that is an excellent question, which is, what size are we compared to your existing client base? Now, it can be really revealing, this one. If they say, you'd be our biggest client by far, that can show a couple of red flags, which is they may not have the resource to handle something like ours, requirement like ours, but the opposite can be true, which is if they say, you'd be one of our smallest clients, it may well be you're just going to be a number in the masses and you may be bottom priority. So I guess what a lot of people in my situation may do is say, you'd be in the middle roughly, and you can ask more follow-up questions off the back of that. It'd be, okay, right, so what would be a similar client to us? And then, coming back to the thing we mentioned before about, red flags, you can start to see how transparent they are.
Okay. I understand you wrote a blog on this a while ago.
I did, probably 6 months ago now. So look, today it was just a few pointers. There's plenty more we can do, a lot more in depth. So go away, have a little read of the blog, and obviously get in touch if you do have any other questions.
Thanks for listening.